Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, very modestly, we must take advantage of all the minute opportunities offered to knead and purify some of the innumerable elements, to make them supple, to make them impersonal, to teach them forgetfulness of self and abnegation and devotion and kindness and gentleness. And when all these modes of being have become habitual to them, then are they ready to participate in the contemplation and to identify themselves with thee in the supreme concentration. With my love and blessing, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother from the Collective Works of our Divine Mother, Volume 4, page 362, topic Forgetting Oneself in Work. Our Divine Mother says, one must try to forget oneself in an ever more absorbing work, that is, do what one does as a consecration to the Divine, altogether disinterestedly, but with a plenitude, a self-giving, a total self-forgetfulness, no longer thinking about oneself, about what one is doing. Our Divine Mother says, you know this? I have already told you this. If you want to do something well, whatever it may be, any kind of work, the least thing, play a game, write a book, do painting or music, or run a race, anything at all. If you want to do it well, you must become what you are doing and not remain a small person looking at himself doing it. For if one looks at oneself acting, one is still in complexity with the ego. One is still in complicity with the ego. Our Divine Mother says, if in oneself one succeeds in becoming what one does, it is a great progress. In the least little details, one must learn this. Take a very amusing instance. You want to fill a bottle from another bottle. You concentrate. You may try it as a discipline, as a gymnastic. Well, as long as you are the bottle to be filled, the bottle from which one pours, and the moment of pouring, as long as you are only this, all goes well. But if unfortunately you think at a given moment, it is getting on well, I am managing well, the next moment it spills over. It is the same for everything, for everything. That is why work is a good means of discipline. For if you want to do the work properly, you must become the work instead of being someone who works. Otherwise, you will never do it well. If you remain someone who works, and besides, if your thoughts go vagabonding, then you may be sure that if you're handling fragile things, they will break. If you're cooking, you will burn something. Or if you are playing a game, you will miss all the balls. It is here in this that work is a great discipline. For if truly you want to do it well, this is the only way of doing it. What gives most of the feeling of inferiority, of limitation, smallness, impotence is always this turning back upon oneself, this shutting oneself up in the bounds of a microscopic ego. One must widen oneself, open the doors, and the best way is to be able to concentrate upon what one is doing instead of concentrating upon oneself, says our Divine Mother. Next topic, doing something unselfishly. Our Divine Mother says if you want to do sadhana, it is obvious that you must have at least partially an occupation which is not selfish, that is, which is not done for oneself alone. Studies are very necessary, even quite indispensable. It's precisely one of the things I was talking about just a while ago, that you must learn when you are young, for when you are grown up, it becomes much more difficult. But there is an age when you can acquire the indispensable foundation for your studies. And if you want to begin to do sadhana, you must do something which does not have an exclusive personal motive. Our Divine Mother says one must do something a little unselfish, for if one is exclusively occupied with oneself, one gets shut up in a sort of carapace and is not open to the universal forces. A small, unselfish moment, a small action done with no egoistic aim, opens a door upon something other than one's own small, very tiny person. One is usually shut up in a shell and becomes aware of other shells only when there is a shock or friction. But the consciousness of the circulating force of the interdependence of beings, this is a very rare thing. It is one of the indispensable stages of sadhana, says our Divine Mother, from volume 6 of our collective works of our Divine Mother 1, page 153. Next topic, how can we make our consciousness vast? Our Divine Mother says the easiest way is to identify yourself with something vast. For instance, when you feel that you are shut up in a completely narrow and limited thought, will, consciousness, when you feel as though you were in a shell, then if you begin thinking about something very vast, as for example, the immensity of the waters of an ocean, and if really you can think of this ocean and how it stretches out far, far, far in all directions like this, and our Divine Mother stretches out her arms, how, compared with you, it is so far that you cannot see the other shore. You cannot reach its end anywhere, neither behind nor in front, nor to the right or to the left. It is wide, wide. You think of this and then you feel that you're floating on this sea like that, and there are no limits. This is very easy. Then you can widen your consciousness a little. Our Divine Mother says other people, for example, begin looking at the sky and then they imagine all those spaces between all those stars and all that kind of infinity of spaces in which the earth is a tiny point and you too are just a very tiny point, smaller than an ant on the earth. And so you look at the sky and feel that you're floating in these infinite spaces between the planets, and that you are growing vaster and vaster to go farther and further. Some people succeed with this. Our Divine Mother says there is a way also by trying to identify oneself with all things upon earth. For example, when you have a small, narrow vision of something and you are hurt by others' vision and point of view, you must begin by shifting your consciousness, try to put it in others, and try gradually to identify yourself with all the different ways of thinking of all others. This is a very little more. This is a little more dangerous because to identify oneself with the thought and will of others means to identify oneself with a heap of stupidities and bad wills, and this bring consequences which are not good. But still, some people do this easily. For instance, when they are in disagreement with someone, in order to widen their consciousness, they try to put themselves in the place of the other and see the thing not from their own point of view, but from the point of view of the other. And this widens their consciousness, though not as much as the first ways I spoke about, which are quite innocent. They do not do any harm. They do much good. They make you very peaceful, says our Divine Mother in Volume 6 of the Collective Works, page 344. Next topic, unifying your being. Our Divine Mother says to learn how to will is a very important thing. And to will truly, you must unify your being. In fact, to be a being, one must first unify oneself. If one is pulled by absolutely opposite tendencies, if one spends three-fourths of one's life without being conscious of oneself and the reasons why one does things, is one a real being? One does not exist. One is a mass of influences, movements, forces, actions, reactions, but one is not a being. Our Divine Mother says, one begins to become a being when one begins to have a will. And one can't have a will unless one is unified. And when you have a will, you will be able to say to the divine, I want what you want. But not before that, because in order to want what the divine wants, you must have a will, otherwise, you can will nothing at all. You would like it very much. You would very much like to want what the divine wants to do. You don't possess a will to give to him and put at his service. Something like that, gelatinous like a jellyfish. There is a mass of good wills, and I am considering the better side of things and forgetting the bad wills. Mass of good wills, half conscious and fluctuating, says our Divine Mother in Volume 6, page 348. Next topic, the purpose of man's life. Our Divine Mother says the purpose of man's life is to become conscious of that. His mission is to manifest it. All religions, all teachings of all the sages are nothing other than methods to reach this goal. They can be classified into three principal categories. First method, intellectual, the love of truth, the search for the absolute. Our Divine Mother says by discernment, study, reflection, analysis, control, and concentration of the thought, one dispels the illusion of personality, a rill of atoms in a single substance, which is itself nothing but an appearance, a condensation of the other. When we say myself, what do we speak of? The body, the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts. All this has no stability. The appearance of continuity comes from a rigorous determinism obtaining in each of these realms of the being. And into this determinism, there enter as many external as internal agents. Where then is the self, that is to say, something permanent, constant, ever the same? In order to find it, to find this absolute, we must proceed from depth to depth, from relativity to relativity, for all that is in form is relative, until we reach that which is unthinkable to our reason, unutterable to our language, but knowable by identification, for we carry that in ourselves. It is the very center and life of our being. Second method, the love of God. Our Divine Mother says it is the method of those who have developed a religious sense, aspiration towards the divine essence of all things that we have perceived in a moment of integral illumination. Then, self consecration to this divine essence, to this eternal law, integral self giving at every moment in all one's actions, complete surrender. One is now only a docile instrument, a faithful servant before the Supreme Master. The love is so complete that it causes a detachment from all that is not the divine, absolute and perfect concentration on Him. Besides, it is not possible to rise higher than that, for love itself is a veil between the lover and the beloved. Identification. Third method, the love of humanity. Our Divine Mother says, as a consequence of a clear vision and intense perception of the immense suffering of humanity, there rises the resolution to consecrate oneself entirely to making this suffering cease. Self oblivion, in the making of all one's thoughts, all one's energies, all one's activities to succor others in however small a degree. With your hearts overflowing with compassion, go forth into this world torn by pain, be instructors, and wherever the darkness of ignorance rules, there light a torch, says our Divine Mother in Volume 2, page 129. These are the words of our Divine Mother.
Source qui font